Okay. So, dear viewers, today we have a very prestigious and very informative topic with us, the research methodology, the research publication and report writing. And the deliberation will be taken care by Dr. Professor Golka Sinar. And we have the presence of none other than the chairman of the research committee, CA Dr. Anuj Goyalji with us. So today, in 2 hours, we would be discussing on research publication and report writing. To formally start this deliberation, this webinar, I would like to make you aware or make you introduce the worthy speaker, Dr. Golka Sinath, and my chairman, C. Anuj Goyalji. First, I take this opportunity to introduce the guest speaker of the day, Dr. Golka Sinha. He is Dean and Professor of Xavier Institute of Management, University Bhubaneswar. He possesses various education qualifications, including MA Economics, MBA Finance, PhD, and he is having more than 4 decades of the professional experience that include teaching as well as corporates, in particularly banking sector and the capital market. He worked with the NSC also, Vijaya Bank also. He worked with Clearing Corporation of India also. As a researcher, market surveillance, membership management, human resource management, so many domain he has. So I think he would be justifying with this because he is having versatile experience. That experience will help you to understand, in particularly the community which belongs to chartered accountants, because our chartered accountant day in day out do research, and I think the experience of our learned speaker would help them because it is gelling with our members' experience as well. Because he served in NSC, he served in Clearing Corporation, he served in banks. Now he is full time with the teaching profession. So I think it would be helpful for our members because they are also in industry some way or around, directly in employment or sometime through as a auditor or some consultant or like this. So his experience is very much matching with our professional chartered accountants experience, and I think it would be takeaway for them to understand the research publication and report writing. Now I take this opportunity to introduce my worthy chairman, Sri Anuj Goyalji. Anuj Goyalji is the sixth term council member of the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. He is a qualified chartered accountant, company secretary, post and works accountant, LLB. His doctorate also, and many post qualification courses by ICI, DSA, DRM, and many others. So academic fund, he has various qualifications, and it's regular fourth year of the C. Anuj Goyalji as the chairman in the research committee. Prior to that, also in 2004, also he chaired this research committee, and I'm happy to share with you that last 4 years continuously I am serving this committee as the secretary under the able guidance of learned chairman C. Anuj Goyalji, and various initiatives has been taken. But I would not be describing these initiatives because that part can be taken care by my chairman C. Anuj Goyalji. CA Anuj I'm taking few more minutes about Anuj. Anuj came from very grassroots. So he started his this member service from branch. He served in the Ghaziabad branch of CRC of ICI. Then he served in company secretary also. There was a tenure. I think, in my knowledge, he is the only person who served in all three institutions: CACS, ICW at Ghaziabad branch level. Then he moved to the regional council of the institute. He chaired the regional council of Central India Regional Council. Then he moved the council, and it's the sixth term of C. Anuj Goyalji. He is academician. He is president of various prestigious institutions. He is independent director. So he is also a very versatile personality. I think it would be great if we hear from him. He will be giving us insight about this topic, the expectations of our members. So, not taking much time, I will not come in between to you, speaker, and the worthy chairman, C. Anuj Goyalji. I would request C. Anuj Goyalji for his opening remarks. Over to C.H. Anuj Goyalji, Chairman, Research Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Amit Kumar Agrawalji. Our dynamic secretary of this oldest technical committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the research committee of ICI. I welcome our honorable resource person, Dr. Golka C. Nath, Dean and Professor, with a very, very prominent University of the Odisha, the state capital of the Odisha, Bhubaneswar. And of course, we are having the presence of n number of delegates from each and every part of India, as well as outside India, from practically each and every part of the world. So I welcome all of you on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, on behalf of the Research Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, to this very, very important series of webinar on research methodology. This would be the last session today in this series on publication and report writing. And friends, I think all of us are very well aware that the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India is the largest accounting body of the world. And it was so important for our independent India that just after becoming independent, the parliament of this country thought it very, very important that the Institute of Chartered Accountants should come into existence with a special act of parliament, the Chartered Accountants Act 1949. On 1st July 1949, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India came into existence as a statutory body. And of course, the Constitution of India could be adopted only on 26th of January 1950. So this is the importance of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and the members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the development of this great country, Bharat. And friends, through this research committee, which is the oldest technical committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, came into existence way back in 1955. We are trying our level best to see that how we can really do something very, very concrete, not only for the cause of the profession, but also for the cause of the society, for the cause of the government, and for the cause of the nation. And through our various initiatives, not only in country, but outside country also, we are trying to take the help of the researchers. We are trying to motivate the researchers in each and every part of the world with a vision of our nation, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Whole world is one, and like that we are trying our level best to see that how we can have the researchers from each and every part of the world, and we are giving the platform to those researchers which can be helpful not only for our country but other parts of the world also. Friends, as one prominent researcher, Albert Georgi, aptly stated, research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. This highlights the importance of research as a tool for growing knowledge and boosting learning by putting forward new ideas. And I'm really very glad to know that chartered accountants are leaving no stone unturned in the arena of research, where they are contributing via their unique experience in accounting, auditing, taxation, finance, and other related subjects. Today, in this last session of the series of webinars, we will be discussing very, very important topic, research publication and report writing, and we are having the best of the resource person. Once the research is conducted, the dissemination of findings through publication is very, very crucial. It's through publication that researchers contribute to the collective knowledge. Academic journals, conferences, books, and other platforms serve as conduits for sharing insights, innovations, and discoveries. Reports are the means by which the findings of the research are disseminated to colleagues, policymakers, and general public. The art of report writing is indispensable in conveying research outcomes and their significance. The webinar is expected to provide guidance on citation methods, citation rules, and writing skills, etc. On that premise, I am convinced that the webinar will assist members in refining their research skills in a great way. And friends, very briefly, I would like to highlight the research committee working. We are having ICI Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Way back in 1958, we initiated this ICI Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And since last year was a resounding success, followed by the highest number of applicants since received, that is 262 from various entities in different sectors, which were being assessed through a robust three-tier process. And this year we are going to have this award ceremony in the capital city of Chhattisgarh, Raipur, on 13th January 2024. And through this ICI Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting, we are trying to see that in each and every sector, whether it is financial sector, whether it is banking sector, whether it is NGO, we can have different categories so that we can compare apple with apple, and the best presented accounts from each and every category we do assess. I think it is one of the most prestigious award ceremony as far as the financial financial statements are concerned. Then we are having ICI International Research Award. Since 2020, at the time of Corona, in the first year of the Corona, we initiated this ICI International Research Award, very, very prestigious international research award. I think Institute of Chartered Accountants of India is the only accounting body which has come out with the ICI International Research Award as a member country of International Federation of Accountants, IFAC. And through its research committee is organizing this global competition which aims to recognize and award the scholars, researchers, professionals, academicians, etc. in the domains of accounting, auditing, economics, finance, and taxation. The award could be considered to be the world's largest cross-border competition. This year we have received highest number of nominations, that is 172. And the selection of awardees is done through a vigorous two-tier process involving renowned international jury panel. The award ceremony was held on 19th October 23 itself at Dubai. And in the very first year, second year, third year also, the president of International Federation of Accountants, IFAC president, was the jury chairman. That shows the importance of this award ceremony worldwide. Then we are having ICI Research Project Scheme. We are having ICI Doctoral Scholarship Scheme. And through this ICI Research Project Scheme, we are trying our level best to see that how we can handhold the researchers to do something very, very concrete in the field of the research. And in this ICI Doctoral Scholarship Scheme, the young academicians, the chartered accountants who want to pursue PhD on full-time basis, we are handholding them, and we are who want to do the research in auditing, taxation, commerce, management, and accounting. Then we are having short-term research studies also. Research committee also formulates guidance notes on accounting aspects which are issued under the authority of the council. It also brings out technical guides, studies, etc. on generally accepted accounting principles. So we are trying our level best to see that how we can really do something very, very concrete with the help of all the chartered accountants, academicians, researchers. So I once again welcome our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Golka C. Nath, who is the dean of a very, very and professor of a very, very prominent University of Odisha, Bhubaneswar, the capital city of the Odisha, on this very, very important topic, research publication and report writing. So I once again welcome all of you and our honorable guest speaker. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for your very, very brief and very, very informative deliberation. And you give us the insight of the various doing of research committee. And now I would request the speaker of the day, Professor Golkha Sinharji, to take over the session. Over to Professor Golkha.
Thank you, Anuj Goyalji, and all the team of the Institute for inviting me. This is a pleasure. Not only this is also I consider it to be an honor for me to speak to the members, and we have some interesting topic to talk about today. So, with without any waste of time, let us start the presentation. I'll just share my screen and then. All the questions and other things can be at the last or something like that. Okay, so So what are the major topics that you want to discuss today? Majorly what the publishers and what do these publishers do? What are the practical tips before you write a research paper? What makes a good manuscript? The article structure that you should do, which can accept, which can be easily accepted by a publishing house. The review and editorial process, what exactly happens once you submit. And there are very important things that you see. What are the ethics that authors need to basically look at? If we see certain very important things, this ELSE is one of the most respected entity which houses 9.8 billion articles now available. Think about there are 7,000 editors, 70,000 editor board, 7 billion authors, publisher, kind of things that you think about. 30 million researchers are there. It covers 180 countries, 480 million downloads per year. So you can basically look at it. It is one of the most powerhouse of research and publication, and it supports the whole world. Every year, we basically 450,000 new articles are produced, right? And it is available electronic form, physical form. That are very so. This is basically certain things that we need to look at. It's a very big world, and large number of journals are there. More than 2,000 journals. There are 19,000 books. Okay, so many things are there which are basically looking after, and this is one of the umbrella, basically organization which looks after this. And there's a particular process of path to publish. What exactly you do when you basically, you publish this particular one. So there's basically between author, editor, and reviewer, because this is basically the process. Once you start submitting a paper, it goes to the editorial process, basic requirement. So you assign the editor assigns the reviewers. There are blind reviewers, and you collect the information from the reviewers. Once they review, they submit their reports, and it can be a rejection, it can be acceptance, it can be revision. With all that, then finally, once all these things are completed, once the revisions are made, a paper can be accepted. So it's basically a lengthy process, but it is worthwhile because it goes through a huge amount of a process of quality checking, and then it basically comes to the final print. Final print does not mean in physical print; it can be also electronic print. Okay. So why should we publish? First of all, if you look at the publishing is one of the necessary steps embedded in research process, because we do research, as Anuj Goyalji said, that we want to also publish it. Because if we have found something new, something interesting, we want the world should know about this particular one, right? So it is necessary for basically it is necessary for graduation and career progression. For any kind of students, if a student is studying in masters, it is necessary that he need to publish if he has to be accepted in the academic world. So there are researchers even in your accounting domain. There are a lot of researchers. There are a lot of people who write articles, journal articles, and publish in international journals because they want the world to know what they have found out in this particular research, how it is going to be useful for the society, and what to publish. What first we decide what we need to publish. First thing is that it must be new and original results or methods. What are these things? That means that we are finding the results that we are basically looking at a particular stuff. It should be new and original. It should not be what other people have found out. We are not basically going to do the same thing. Or new methods. That means I am introducing a new method of publishing. Even if you are doing a survey, you can absolutely have a different kind of method to find out a survey so that you emphasize on samples so that your method that you apply in the survey, how do you basically discard the outlier information, all those things also can be unique. Reviews and summaries of a particular subject, what basically there can be, things which you want to basically review and summarize of a particular subject you want to basically publish. What is the role of chartered accountancy or chartered accounting? What is the role of audit in the society? It can be a good article to be published to understand for the layman who are not from the accounting area. They can basically appreciate what exactly is the objective of this manuscript that advance the knowledge and understanding in a certain field. Okay, that means the manuscript that we write or the research that we do before it is basically published, that how it advances the knowledge and understand a particular field that we are looking at. And what we not to publish. First of all, we need to know what is basically reports of no scientific interest. Either you want to publish something which has no scientific interest or which has no value to society, it need not be published because editors will not like to waste the paper, waste the pages of a journal in which they spend a lot of time in protecting the pages. So out of date work, that means you are talking about something which happened about 20 years back or 15 years back. It may not have relevance as on today, right? But think about something you want to do on a study on COVID. What a kind of impact it created in the society in terms of finance, in terms of marketing, in terms of accounting, in terms of all kinds of, in fact, in terms of education, what it did, So this can be an area which is very current. But if something you want to publish, what happened in 2000, basically 1997 Asian crisis, after such a long time of 30 years or something like that, 25, 30 years, it has very little importance or little relevance for the society to know. And duplication of previously published work, that is also it is to be avoided because it finally does not add any value to the existing literature. Incorrect and unacceptable conclusions. That means you publish something which does not intuitively, it is going against the accepted principles or acceptable conclusions. Okay, you need a good manuscript to present your contribution to the content. Finally, at the end, what you need is a very good manuscript to present your contribution so that the community can appreciate what you are basically, what you have done. So why conduct basically why conduct and publish research? Why you should basically conduct a research work? Why we want to do it? The first thing that what you want to do is want to say something important, right? Something very important. Like when we are talking about a particular topic, in new arenas of accounting. Today if you look at CSR, audit, okay, the social responsibility, currently the CSR amount money that has been being spent, how it is the social audit, whether it is basically resulting in the kind of things that we are expected to achieve out of this CSR spending. 2% of the profits of the company are being spent on, basically development on social, issues, right? What kind of outcomes we have basically achieved. So we need to say something very important. And what else? Why we want to conduct our research? We want to share our work because we thought certain ideas. We believe in certain basically theories, and we see whether these theories are workable or not. We want to share our work with the fellow, basically colleagues who are in the same domain. We can basically look at the something new which can change the practice of what exactly we are following rightly, because we have found something new, and this by this particular new method that we have found, or new result that you can found, can basically change the old practice that we have been doing, and then promote thought or debates, basically. But something that we are promoting a particular new line of thought or a particular debate, which is a debate is about which is good, which is bad, or which is workable, which is not workable, which is ethical, which is socially acceptable, which is not socially acceptable. Also new kind of things that you are basically thinking about, and you want to debate you want to basically create a debate on in the particular domain. So people who are working in this particular area, they can take part, and they can basically debate among themselves to find out whether what we are basically doing is is acceptable or not. Then we want to also educate, because by finding out new things, by talking about new concept, by talking about new methodology, by talking about a new manuscript that has come, we want to educate our existing society or existing stakeholders, right? And we want to tell something new. Actually, a new batch of students, when they are basically coming to learn about a particular subject, we would like to basically educate them with a new subject, okay, or new thoughts. Get into high impact journals. Because finally, what are these high impact journals? Very well respected journals. Extremely, like Journal of Finance is one world's topmost financial journal, right? So I want to basically get into some kind of journals like that, which has very high respect in the society, in the particular domain. And if you are able to publish in such high kind of impact journals, not only it gives you self satisfaction, it brings you it brings the prestige to the institution where you are working, and it brings it to the trade that you are doing, that somebody will say that a chartered accountant, Mr. So and so, has published in such a high top class journal. So that's basically a kind of, it basically talks about a trade, completely trade. So the whole group of chartered accountants are basically benefited out of this. Advance your career by publishing. That we basically finding out new things, we are basically advancing our career. We are maturing and moving our career to the forwards, because in many universities, your promotion happens to the next cadre, like say from assistant professors to an associate professor or to a full professor, on the basis of your publications, say research publications. Because research publication credits are basically internationally considered as part of your career progression. That is not only in academics, but in also practice. In when you are basically working in that particular domain, even it advances, because you are basically able to explore something new, to put forward that, yeah, this is something what I have done. It will advance my career, because I am the first thing. Like think about since all of you are chartered accountants here, think about when the GST came into the picture. Initially, there's so much amount of confusion. There are people who there are certain chartered accountants whom I know, big firms, they basically started shifting their entire focus into GST. Okay, because they found that this is a highly complicated particular product. So we need to more explore on this particular one. We want to spend a lot of time in understanding all these things. Then we specialize on this. We try to bring out new concept, all these things, the new concepts. So we will basically, try to put more emphasis on this learning, this particular process. And this has actually advanced their career. People who understood in early stages of GST, who spent a lot of time, they actually moved into that particular domain and created a much bigger, basically pie of the entire cake. And there are also, you do publish and research many times to keep your job. That's why one example that I have given, if you are in a particular profession which requires regular publication in universities like in US, if you have not published during last 3 years, if you don't have a publication, you don't get a tenure. You don't get accepted benefits that are basically acceptable. You do not get. So you to keep your job, you need to publish. Okay, this is for the academic lines. And also there are publications, the new things that I basically talk about, if I can basically convert them into a workable model, right, I make money, right? So if I can create that out of that particular, if I design a particular model, and I using that particular model, I develop basically applications. I develop something web-based particular application where people can easily do that. I also make money, right? Entertain, divert, and amuse also. With my new publications, all those things also is a part of your publications. So what are the steps in starting a research? What exactly you do when you basically start a particular research, right? The first thing that you do is turn your ideas into research questions. What exactly is a research question? That's very important. A research question is something, which has not, if something is happening because of one impact of this particular one, impact of a particular process is creating, some operational challenge in another process, right? We need to understand what kind of basically why if we raise a particular or run a particular process, why that particular process is having an impact on another process. Okay, so how do you basically think about? I'll give an example. Research questions. Think about today being a chartered accountant. You understand, there are something called reconciliation of accounts. Think about what are the challenges that we face today. If I have to check, I have to reconcile bank accounts of an organization which has more than 500 bank accounts. I know a particular organization which has more than 550 simple bank accounts on daily basis. I have to reconcile that particular one. So what is my basically, how do I do it? I cannot physically do it. So I need to basically develop certain, API kind of things to download data from the banks. It has to work in a very seamless way. So I can basically ask, how do I do it? Then only the idea came that let's look at some kind of technology solutions, right? So turn your ideas into a research question. How do I do it with a saving of time? How do we do it which can help the society? How can it basically reduce the cost? All these things are basically various research questions. Then, review the literature, right? So what exactly you do? What existing literature is available on this particular area? That's very important things, because literature gives me what people have earlier done on this particular area. Let us take the example of GST. Okay, so there are a lot of writing, lot of FAQs, lot of questions, lot of answers have been basically put, right? And so what if I have to basically develop a new kind of a FAQ on a GST? Then I need to basically find out the old existing FAQs which are being answered by many people, which is already there. I do not have to repeat, but if I have found something new, something more complications which is basically affecting a particular company which is in manufacturing, and another company which is basically in a trading kind of things, right? Instead of manufacturing, they may have different kind of challenges. So I need to find out the literature, what exactly the existing literature talks about, how this literature has been capturing for the older questions, and what are the new things that we need to basically do. So reviewing the literature, that means we need to basically go back and study each and everything that has been written on that particular subject and take the gist of that and see if a particular kind of things that has basically talked about the impact of you can say that how the stock markets have behaved during the COVID-19 when COVID was there. Theoretically the stock markets have taken a crash initially, but then it revived. Why this particular thing has actually happened? What exactly has resulted in such kind of behavior? So there are a lot of things have been written on this particular issue on, since COVID is just not very old, still the literature is evolving. I can find something new think about, I will go and see, I will take the age group of different, five or six different countries which can be compared in terms of their size, in terms of some kind of adjustments I need to make, and then see for a particular age group. Say I want to study the age group of 23 to 27, 23 or 23 to 30. How these particular people were affected in terms of their income, in terms of their the job, in terms of their family, in terms of their all kinds of regenerating, basically what exactly has happened during this particular period. If it is something new, if it is not there in literature, I want to add something on this particular area in this. Then I will basically look at co-authors, because there are many times if I am handling a very complicated topic, I need to discuss, I need to have basically conversations with other people, and those other people can add more value to my thinking. They can sharpen my skills, they can sharpen my thinking process. And if we are thinking in the similar line, certain ideas I have, but I can take my co-authors, they can have basically giving better explanations. We can basically combine together. Today we live in a world, in a world of cooperation. So we have to cooperate with each other. So co-authoring is become very, very common today. And why co-authoring has very common today? Because the value that it basically creates, in the society. So there are multiple authors bring a lot of things to the table, their own, personal thinking to the table. And not only that, we debate, we play devil's advocate to each other to find out which is the best one to go about. So enlisting co-authors, and we need to basically figure out who are in our own domain, how much we have commonality, right? What kind of diversification the co-author brings to the table. All these things are, very important when we talk about a particular thing, because we sometimes take co-author who has beautiful writing powers. We may give certain results, but we may not be able to write it in such a manner that which can get into, because the whole world believes in storytelling. So storytelling can make an article, make a result to be more acceptable than what I just put a table, a kind of an ordinary table, which you may not. So storytelling, sometimes we basically take a co-author who is an extremely good storyteller. He can take all the data, all the charts, all the tables, everything, and put them in such a beautiful fashion that it becomes more readable, more palatable, more, putting these words in writing, it will become more acceptable to the editors or when we submit to a particular journal. Then statisticians, because anything that we talk about, it has certain data, right? And today, the data is the new, basically power. So we need basically statisticians who will, basically look into the data and talk to us about what the data says. Does it give a pattern? If it gives a pattern, what kind of implications it has, right? And what exactly the summary of this particular data? Can it be written in a, basically by putting that particular data in a graphical manner or in a tabular manner or in a particular, manner that will make more meaningful and it will make people to understand much better? That's basically why we need a statistician, because statistics has become very, very important part of any kind of research work. Supervisors, that means we also, after we write, we basically try to find out who can basically look at, holistically about our work, and then, give us some idea about how this particular thing has basically progressed, or what exactly is, where do we need to make changes, what do we want to, additions, subtractions, where, because if we become more verbose, it is not acceptable by the editors. So we need to basically a supervisor, able supervisor to guide us, how can we basically take this particular one forward. And Again, in the entire process, when we basically take a co-author, then we agree on who will do what. Which part of this particular work will be done by one particular co-author? Because I'll give an example. There are particular paper you are writing. There is a professor, two professors in US, and me. We are writing a particular paper. So we have three different. One particular professor who was looking at, because he was extremely good in a particular software called SAS. So he was basically whatever data and whatever things we are talking about, he will run the millions of lines of data that we gave it to him after collecting some particular market, and he will run those millions of lines of data, and he will give us certain kind of summary on this. So this is very important because we agree that who will do what. His part is, though he's part of our co-authoring process, his work was basically very well defined that he has to run all the computer programs and give the results, and we'll interpret those particular results. So the next is design the study and develop your method. So what is that? How do we basically design the study? I have one particular research article that I have taken from the Journal of Accounting, and I'll see how they basically we design a particular study. Design the study means, suppose I want to understand the impact of COVID on stock market, or impact of COVID on interest rates. Okay, so how do we basically design? That means we have to design a study. We have to find out a pattern before COVID is a particular period. So that particular period, something might have happened. So there is a period before COVID and there is a period after COVID. So we'll see that if basically if we find there are three different periods, this COVID period must have behaved differently than the pre-COVID period, and post-COVID period, if we make certain dummy variables kind of things and make certain kind of insertions for understanding what exactly has happened, how much amount of impact is created on COVID. So we need to basically study these three different three different periods to understand what kind of impact it has actually created. So our design of the study is kind of to understand whether is there any is there a structural change in the particular data, and how these particular structural changes have actually happened. Is there a structural break in the data before COVID? After this particular COVID, is there structurally the data is changing? Then we need to basically look at that. So design the study. Then we'll develop our methods. How do I basically study this? What kind of method? That means if I have to do this, there are three different, basically periods. So my first, I will divide into three different periods, then publish a basic statistics. That means descriptive statistics of first period, second period, and third period. Then maybe I will basically look at kind of something like we'll call it a volatility. I will see the volatility before COVID, the volatility during COVID, and volatility after COVID. So if we basically look at what are other methods that you can think they would develop our methods to study, what kind of equations that we are basically writing to understand the impact that has created during the COVID period. Because we have to write in such a manner, if it is COVID, then that particular data will identify this is the COVID period. When it runs a regression, it will have some kind of a dummy variable that it talks about this is COVID, this is non-COVID. So my method, my method has to basically, augment the data that I have. Then think about the ethics of your study design. That means ethics means if we are basically looking at, there are two things. Whether, our data that we have, right? The methodology or the equation or whatever the, methodology that we are basically following, how this particular methodology is applicable to the data. Is my methodology is fitting the data, or I'm just making the changes to the data to fit into my methodology? The second one is a very inferior method. I am changing the data, making some adjustment to the data to fit into my methodology. That may not be correct. I should develop a method which should basically look at the data and structurally give me the correct results. So that is basically, ethically, I should be doing that instead of adjusting. And if that some data is inconvenient, because I should not drop those particular data to find out a particular result. Okay. And with this particular, because ethics of your study design is very important, ethically it has to be, how do I basically design my study design. I should not go into, basically copying some study design of others. That's basically another one. Then I will write my research proposal. First, then I will write a simple proposal. What exactly I am going to create? What is my objective? What exactly my expected outcomes? What are the expected data source I am going to use? What are the basically journal articles that I think has contributed to this particular area? And how the last thing is how this particular work is going to help the society. Because I can write something, and then can I take this particular, suppose I want to write a paper on financial markets, and then I, basically after writing, then can I take it to SEBI and tell them that this is what I found and this is something unique? Can you think about, doing something about this particular one, right? And can you think about, how to basically implement this particular one? Do you think that, if my present volatility calculations that we do is not sufficient to capture the risk that the market runs, then can I basically think about modify my volatility methods to capture more, significant amount of movements in this particular market? So this is what exactly, if I need to basically write the research proposal, objective should be very clear. Whether it is implementable, whether what the policymakers, if I write a particular paper, what the policymaker is going to do with this particular paper. That's very, very important. So when I'm writing my, basically research proposal, I should be very, very careful about, because there are, large number of funding options are available. People who are willing to fund my research work. Okay, like think about, if you go to NSE or BSE websites and all, they do a lot of funding, or SEBI, they do a lot of funding from the Investor Education Fund. They basically provide a lot of funding for the research work. Okay, it comes out with working papers. Then there are basically it is published in various journals. It basically talks about a lot of important issues that we handle in this particular market. So this is a research proposal is very, very important. And because if your proposal is not good, you cannot really seek funding, because there are people who are sitting there who will be judging your proposal, and there are large number of proposals are coming up and funds are limited. So if your proposal is not good, is not likely to thinking that not likely to result in a kind of things that we are looking at, which is going to be helpful to the society, it may not be acceptable to the guys who are basically funding it. Okay, so if it is basically, all these things are satisfied, then I can apply for funding. And ethics, basically if I am plagiarism is one of the most important thing, that, I should, whatever the research that I'm basically doing, it should be unique, it should be new, it should tell something which has not been told earlier. It should not be copied from some work, because there are millions of, basically articles are there. If I copy certain articles from something, I should not produce this. So ethics is very, very important here. Okay. What is exactly is a research question? That's basically the first thing that we need to ask. If I want to do it, what exactly is the research question, right? This particular part I will again explain you when I basically, in my second PPT, which I will basically talk about the accounting sides, right? And how it is basically pertaining to your domain, how a research question is set in that particular domain, right? So, but, theoretically, what exactly is doing? Researcher asks a very specific question and test a specific hypothesis. That null hypothesis or, any hypothesis that something, if I think a particular hypothesis that impact of COVID in stock market, I expect the stock market must have come down, or it has basically the volatility, my hypothesis, the volatility must have increased dramatically during the COVID period, because the thinking is during the particular, when COVID was there, the large amount of uncertainty. First of all, the production, because of the closed, the lockdown process, the production system came to a halt, right? So goods and services were not, easily available. There was shortage. People started hoarding medicines and loaded started holding commodities at their houses, buying more than what they are supposed to buy. Okay. So when, basically if I am asking if all these things has resulted in higher prices and in, higher prices of commodities as well as the volatility of those particular prices. So basically, do I basically ask a question whether the similar, kind of volatility is observed in all the countries, or it is basically unique to India? Suppose I take a few countries like Switzerland, South Africa, Thailand, India, Singapore, US, and see that whether all the people are behaved, basically in that particular one, or the countries which had more, basically developed, they showed a different kind of picture than, the countries which have a fantastic supply chain working there. They showed a different kind of picture vis-a-vis the countries where you have a lot of, logistic problem in delivery. So researcher ask a very specific question and test a very specific hypothesis. This can be, one, but how do I basically test my hypothesis? Hypothesis that, I talked about my hypothesis null is the volatility might have increased. Volatility increased after the, during the COVID period. So volatility, I have to show that volatility before COVID period was lower and volatility after COVID period is also lower. So 2019 to 2021 is, I will basically ascertain that is my period for which I want to basically, identify that as with the COVID period. And after 2021 March, and here in, in 1999, after November 1999, so during this particular period, I take the particular data and see whether my conditional volatility has increased dramatically during this particular COVID period vis-a-vis the other 2 periods. So this can be my hypothesis that I can test. And broad questions are usually broken into, smaller questions. Okay, broad questions are broken into smaller questions, right? So 1 minute. Yeah. So broad questions. That means if I have a bigger questions, I basically okay. If it is if I have a large question, then I break down into smaller ones, right? I want to study the whole, how the GDP has actually behaved during, all the among the 5 or 10 countries during the your COVID period, whether when I adjust all these particular countries in terms of their GDP, in terms of their, how the economic activity, okay, has actually resulted, what is the economic activity process, whether a particular country had, higher amount of economic activity compared to other countries in terms in a particular period. So I want to basically, do that. Okay. Break into smaller and testable hypotheses or questions, because finally those questions are breaking into smaller parts. They must be tested independently. Okay, like for example, I want to basically say that during this particular period, my age group 23 to 30 age group of people, started more amount because people were at home. So people of 27 to 30, 32, 33 people started basically, they were the people who started more trading in stock market. So is there basically, then I have another testable hypothesis among these, whether the female employees or female basically percentage in the stock trading was higher or the basically male percentage. Okay, whether the male percentage people started looking at futures and female percentage people started looking at options. These are basically various sub questions that we can ask, and we can break down and into smaller questions. Often called an objective or an aim, right? Through calling it a question tends to help with focusing the hypothesis and thinking about how to find an answer. Because whenever we are writing a paper, first thing that we are taking, what is my objective of my paper? Okay, objective of the paper has to be very clearly, because this is my aim or my objective. Finally, I want to achieve these particular things, right? So my result, after I publish my results, after I basically run the computer programs, run the regressions, then I should find this is what exactly I have found, right? and say kind of whether during this particular period, whether the behavior of children at the thing during COVID period. One particular doctor I was talking to, he has studied something in a and published in a journal, the behavior of the younger generation, right? People who are studying in the age, I mean, the standard 1 to standard 4 during this particular COVID period, because they were homebound, they were always at home. They did not have the, basically opportunity of meeting other children during that particular period of couple of years. So what exactly, whether their social skills, the behavioral social skills, the development in terms of their mental ability of developing social skills have actually gone down compared to the people of the same group in the pre-COVID period. Okay, so it is expected that since the children are not basically, they are more staying at home in the home environment, they are not exposed to various kind of challenges outside their home. They basically are not able to encounter these particular challenges. So they develop different kind of skills. There are people, specifically school children with the age group of 8, who are studying in 8, 9, 10. No, there is basically during that particular period when they're not able to meet, they develop different kind of attitude problem, getting, irritation, sometimes suicidal impact, all those things basically started coming in, right? So we need to basically, what my objective is, what I want to basically study, that's basically my thing that I want to understand. If I basically follow a kind of, think about an auditing, should I do a sample auditing or should I do full data auditing? There was a, some few years back when I was working in the corporate world, what we had simple policies, and this also we learned out of our experience. When we launch a new product, we used to tell our auditor that he has to, basically audit each and every day's data and see that what we have done is correct. But once a product stabilizes, maybe after say 1 year or something like that, once the product stabilizes, then the audit can be on a sample basis. Okay. So, basically think, because if I start my audit on the basis of sample, why I am telling you this, because we found out, we made a mistake, because from the beginning, we started because we are so sure of our own work, we thought that sample audit is the best. Then we went for sample audits. So sample again is basically something you randomly pick up dates. So on a particular, after about 1.5 to 2 years, we realized then one particular day, the date that result we faced was something kind of a different that we did not expect. Because what we did is basically a calculation that we used to do. There are 3 different systems that we used, 3 different programs we used, and this SAS, then C programming, and then Excel, macros. So we are running these 3. These 3 should give the same results, and then we'll go ahead with the publications. Since we are running these 3 particular different programs, and all 3 programs are giving the same result, we are so sure we requested, though the auditor asked us that, sir, it is better to start auditing with everyday's data rather than having a sample since it's a new product. But we somehow we overrode the auditors and went for sampling, which we realized after 1.5 years, one particular day we found one particular program is giving me a standard deviation calculation, which is not in sync with the other 2 calculations. Then we realized that it's not a good idea to have this, sample auditing when a particular product is launched. So we, from that particular day, whenever a new product is launched, we always ask our auditor to check each and every day's data, reconcile, and see the output should tally with what exactly we have, basically published this one. So this is what exactly is about thinking about, objective and putting a question, putting a particular standard, putting a particular, thinking in the line. Turning a research question into a proposal. How do I basically turn a research question into a particular proposal? That means a question has to be converted through storytelling into a proposal which has objective of getting funding. Because when you do a research, large amount of money is also required. because you have to access data. Data is costly. If I have to, data is not freely available, and then you have to basically have some research assistant to compile the data. So there is some amount of money, so funding is basically required. Not a large amount of funding, but yes, funding is basically required. So the research-based questions has to be converted into proposal. Then I can basically say, who am I collecting information from? What kind of, that means if I am basically collecting information, it is this particular information is available or it is basically payable. Suppose I want to collect information on primary market. Okay, so Prime database will give me only access to information if I basically subscribe to that. Okay, so that means it's cost money. What kind of information do I need? Because if I want to do a particular survey on stock market, this one, what kind of information I need, right? Do this particular information that I am looking at, is it stock wise information I require, or I simply require a end of day Bhav copy, or I require every hour price changes, or what exactly I require? What information? Because what I'm basically studying, do I want to study, today if you look at big data, okay, lot of things today we predict inflation using big data. Large footfalls in the shopping malls. So all these are very basically part of big data. So this big data information, if I want to use this, what kind of information I require to, if I want to basically predict inflation, possible future inflation. So what kind of information I need to require? Is it this information paper, is it freely available, or should I pay to basically get this particular information? How much information will I need? If I am making a study for last 5 years data, that means I will definitely require 5 years data. Okay, so is this, then I have to question that is 5 years data is enough? Because if I take only 5 years data, then I will be missing 9/11. 9/11 was one of the most volatile day in the world, right? So that means how many years of data that it, if you think about, our, even the accounting rules also, the government also tells you, you have to protect your records up to a particular number of years. So if I basically destroy after that particular number of years, that means records are not available to me. So that means how much information may I need, because I can only seek information. Today in the digital world, we save everything. Okay, because now the your hard disk has become cheaper, your saving on the cloud has become cheaper. So all those things have basically helped us to realize that. Okay, how much information I need, how will I use this information? First of all, not only having information, how do I use this particular information? Do I use for my work? Because there are ethics, because information comes with a lot of lot of tags. Okay, because there information will have certain basically think about other data. When you are accessing other data, the names, the all kinds of personal data is available, and people are very sensitive to this particular data, particular this. So how do I basically, how will I use this particular information? How will I minimize, okay, in chance, bias, or confounding? How do I basically do this? How do I basically minimize that in my selection of data? That will be a bias. Say sampling. If I have a biased sampling, that particular sampling may not give me the results that I am basically looking at. How will I collect the information ethically? Do I, should I steal the data from somebody's website? Because there in the website is written that if you are basically taking this particular data is not for sale, data is not for use. You can only basically look at this particular data. But if you want to use it and you want to commercially exploit the data, then you have to pay for that particular data. So that means ethically collecting the data is very important. So all those parts is a part of, because big questions, big journals ask you how ethically, how you have collected the data, what are the data source, you share the data source with the basically people. So this is also very important part. How do I basically minimize my bias and confounding? Chance, measurements are nearly always subject to a random variance, right? So how do I basically, because I'm doing a measurement, are always subject to some kind of random variation will happen, right? So minimize error by ensuring adequate sample size and using What I'm doing basically, so sample size, if I am basically studying a particular data for last 10 years, okay, and if I just want to do a yearly data, 10 lines of data is not going to be sufficient for me to arrive at a particular result. Okay, previously in India, GDP figures used to be published annually, and afterwards it has now been published quarterly. So only quarterly data is available only for few years. But if I want to do like in US, the data is available for 50 years, 100 years. I can go to Federal Reserve website and I can get data for large number of years. But in India, you may not be able to get that particular data. So we want to do a large structural, basically major structural models were developed in US because large amount of data is available where you can test your models. Okay, but here we may not have that kind of basically, choice or that kind of, availability of that particular data. Then how do we basically reduce or minimize my bias? Because bias will cause systemic variation or error in selecting. Okay, suppose I want to do basically study of people who are basically suffering heart disease and what kind of impact a particular medicine is creating, a new medicine is creating on this particular, or heart, if people are basically patients have heart disease, how many people have died more having cardiac problems have died in COVID. I want to study this particular one. Then I need to basically, study a particular sample because sample must be covering all age groups rather than only the age groups of the people who are at the top. But if I want to do a heart attack kind of things, because we know the people who are, after 40, 45 years, chance of heart attack is higher. So my data must also be basically, if I take the data from, from the children to, 75, 80 years of data, I may not get the right kind of answers. So I need to basically look at this particular selecting, when I'm basically selecting data, I need to look at that particular demography. Then, basically I'm measuring my outcomes, analyzing data. I have to take extra care so that the bias is not there in the data, because if data has a trend, if a data has a basically bias in the, in the data itself, my results is going to be biased. So the results cannot be really relied, in the market. So confounding is factors that affect the interpretation of the outputs, because when people will basically read this, they will be basically confounded because they, how do we interpret this particular, there can be multiple meanings in this. People who carry matches are more likely to develop lung cancer, right? But smoking is the confounding factor. So, you can just measure likely that we will have more amount of this particular one, right? Okay. So, there is a particular, it has an empirical proof. People who carry, this basically the mastics, the kind of that stuff, the chemicals that basically work in that particular one, they have a high chance of basically developing lung cancer, right? Then the people who are basically smokers. So writing a research paper, what information you will give participants before seeking their consent? Because, you are basically, if you are doing a sample, right? What kind of, during this voting time, there is a basically, people basically vote about one, and people vote, and when they come out, there are basically sample survey is done by various companies or various news channels to understand who is, what is the possibility of a particular party is winning this particular ones, right? So what information will seek participants before seeking their consent? What kind of information are you basically telling them this is what I'm doing? So the people from whom you are collecting information, they should be fully aware. How much will the study deviate from the current normal or accepted practice? Okay. How much your study that you are basically doing deviate from the current, normal practice? What full burden will be imposed on the participant? That means if a participant is basically giving you information, sometimes they basically sign that this information provided, is correct. Okay, they may not be providing you correct information. What risk will participants or others be exposed to? Because if I am basically, giving particular information and I release the name of this particular people, by mistake. Okay, there are many times the data is stolen. Like last time, the All India Institute of Medical Science saw that their patient database has been stolen from there. So all the information, health records, all the information, personal records of the people are on the dark web, which can be sold to basically highest bidders, right? So that can basically bring lot of problems for the people. So what risk the participants will be exposed to? You need to basically understand that. What benefit might participant otherwise receive? Like a new drug is applied on cancer patients. So they will basically, there are patients who will sign up this particular one. They will get the cancer, basically drugs at no price. They will know at free of cost. But there is a chance that if the drug does not work on them, they may go into a negative zone possibility. So that's basically, there is a kind of declaration when they participate in this. They have to basically take a declaration that there's a disclaimer the company signs with them. So they provide this free of cost. How might society or future benefit in time if I'm doing something, if I'm basically producing something, how the benefit of society is going to benefit out of this. Okay, and whether the publication is reveal some personal identity, this is one of the most important thing that we basically look at. Under no circumstances, personal identities, okay, to be basically to be released. The process of research publication, more submission of lower quality, because today we see in the world lower quality papers are basically submitted. Stress for editors and reviewers. Editors and reviewers are most precious resource of their journal. And editors and reviewers are participating scientists, even leaders in their fields. They in a year, I basically receive about 5 to 7 research papers from international journals, very top-rated journals in India as well as abroad. 5 to 7 journals, and a few research, PhD thesis I receive every year. So that means when I basically allocate my time, I need to read that particular article very carefully, line by line, understand the literature, meaning, then go back and study that literature, come back, see the methodologies, then apply the statistics, how the relevant methodology is applied. So a particular person who is reviewing this particular article or the research paper is putting a lot of effort into this. So do you basically should we basically burden all the reviewers and researchers with this particular thing? Editors, reviewers, they're not professional journal staff. They do journal work on top of their own research, writing and teaching. Okay, they're busy people who work for journals to contribute to the science. So, to the science. Editors must receive a small payment. Editors, but reviewers are totally they are unpaid. So we don't. That means editors may be receiving small amount of payments on honorariums, but reviewers don't receive anything. But they do the maximum amount of jobs because they love this particular one. So every manuscript takes up their precious time. So nowadays they're working even harder because each and every manuscript need to be, basically read properly to answer certain whether because when I am basically studying about a particular paper, I am thinking whether if I reject this particular paper, what kind of impact is going to create on the other side, because he's not here to justify this. But then I have to also justify the society that if I pass this particular paper, is it going to add some new things to the existing literature? So there are two challenges that I have to face from both sides. So there is something called an impact factor for each and every journal, right? And that impact factor, because when you publish in a particular journal, so you basically know the impact factor means this particular journal adds a lot of value to the society, okay, in terms of that particular domain. So impact factor is the average annual number of citations for article received. Every day, every time a particular article of mine is read by somebody, so there's an academic, website, or there's a portal which basically takes track of, keeps track of people's, articles being read, and it tells you there are so many citations happened about this article. There are so many people have read about this particular article. Today in the world of, basically internet, we basically have all these things at our fingertips. So, the impact factor is basically gives the ranking of a particular journal, right? Higher impact factor, journal is more productive, more useful, more read by the researchers. So impact factor is a simple calculations, and this basically citations and how many basically number of times article published, right? And it's basically simple calculations. You can see that social science, your accounting, where it basically comes in the social science, even my field of economics comes in this particular one, which is impact factor in theoretically, subject which an influence and impact factor is very low. So that means we have to be very, very careful of, large number of papers come. So we have to be very careful about this, right? So the citation is less, but you receive large number of papers. So your impact factor comes down, right? But if you look at the fundamental life science, neuroscience, clinical medicine, pharmacology, toxicology, physics, their impact factor is very high. Okay, so chance of citations are high. That means the more new work, more new things they basically do, they basically are being published there. Then what you have questions to answer before you write? Think about why you want to publish your work, right? So why you want to publish? You want to tell some new story. You want the society to benefit from your ideas, from your new thinking, from your research. So that's basically think about why you want to publish your work. Or do you want to have a kind of a IPR on this particular one so that I will, basically monetize this after some time. I will get into a commercial model. If my particular thinking about, all of you might have heard about the Black-Scholes, option pricing. Okay, so the Black-Scholes option pricing, Black-Scholes are the people who, they're professors, Martin, Black, and Scholes. They're the professors who received Nobel Prize, and then they created a huge hedge fund. Okay, long-term, basically LTCM, capital management. That's basically it's a huge test case in many of the universities. This is a very important test case. So they wanted to monetize what they developed as the model. They wanted to monetize by creating a hedge fund, taking money. But it is one of the largest disasters of our time before the financial crisis came, because it took the entire US economy into dustbin, till the government intervened and tried to basically protect the investors. They'll see, long-term capital management. The episode is very well known. Okay, so why you want to publish your work? You want to monetize. You want for the society. There are many people who have given this to the society, right? That they don't want to charge, but they want society to be beneficial, right? So is it new and interesting? Think about, Hotmail today, the mailing system. We don't really pay for it, okay? But somebody has developed, but it has not been commercialized. It is getting bit of commercialized, but we simply we do not pay for that particular one. We use free, access to our Hotmails, our Gmails, all those things. We use it, right? In an indirect way of subsidizing this particular one, but this is something a social good, a free good that has been published, that has been provided by some companies. Is it new or interesting? Is it a current hot topic? Like I said, COVID, is it a hot topic? How it is impacted this particular ones? Have you provided, even the, current war that is basically going between Russia and Ukraine? How the commodity prices have increased? How the commodity prices are affected? Today we are thinking about there's a, crisis in Africa, the cost of living crisis in Africa. Okay, food grains not available. Okay. Again, the basically Israel Hamas war is creating another basically kind of problem in the world. Have you provided solution to some difficult problems? In this particular, you are raising certain questions. Have you developed some solutions in your writing to that? Are you ready to publish at this particular point? That means you have tested your articles, you have tested all these words, you have gone with the testing of these benefits. I have, some amount of sample data I have taken to test, but if I use this particular one for a large sample, large amount of data for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, is this telling me the same story? Or the story is changing, when I change my data? Okay. If all answers are yes, then start preparation for your manuscript. Because a lot of testing is done before we basically start our manuscript. What makes a good manuscript? Contains a clear, useful, and exciting scientific message, right? So that means if I am basically publishing certain articles or something, the manuscript that I write, okay, the first draft that I publish before I send it to the reviewer, supervisor to basically review and tell me. So it should be clear. It should be not ambiguous. It should be useful and exciting scientific message. Flows in a logical manner that reader can follow. That means when I'm talking about a particular one, first I will introduce my topic. Second, I will tell objective of my study. Third, I will tell in this particular study what history has basically, what is the existing literature that has basically been talked about, what the literatures have covered so far. Then I will be talking about the data that I am going to use. Then I will be talking about the methodology that I am going to use and see why my methodology is better than some other methodologies. And if I basically use this particular methodology and data, what is my results that I am showing in tables and charts and graphs? And after my results, then I'd say, what are the implication of these results? Implication is if my results are published, how it is going to be implemented in the society by the regulator. Suppose I want to do something on the interest rate prediction in India. So if I basically do something like this, then how the RBI is going to take this particular issue, and how RBI is going to use this particular research for its work, for monetary policy prescription, possibly. Okay, so it should be flow in a logical manner that reader can basically follow. And final last is conclusion. And then in conclusion, we write also what are the future possible research in this particular one. Also we give them idea what is my, what are my limitations of this particular one. So that is very clear. And then we cite the articles that we have basically relied on to write this particular paper. Is it formatted to best showcase the material? That means, is it how I am basically formatting this article? Am I putting all the tables and charts at the end, or in this particular one? There are basically journals who follow certain principles. Okay, there are journals who will basically put your tables and charts in the within the writing itself. There are journals which will put your charts and tables are always out, basically at the end. Because today the law is, the rule is that if I am publishing a table, the table should be self-sufficient. It should be just by looking at the table, I should be able to understand. I need not read anything, to accompany this particular table. Is written in a style that transmits the message clearly. That means, have I written it clearly that what I want to basically convey, the message is clear to the society, to the people who are reading this particular one. So then we select the best journal for our submission. So look at your references, right? This will help you narrow it, because where my reference that I am basically, the journals that I am basically reading, or the paper that I am reading, where those particular papers have been published. If I see that a large number of basically publication in a particular journal, that means that particular journal is suitable for my publication. Review the recent publication in each candidate journal, right? 4 or 5 candidate journals and shortlist, and then review this recent publications. And I will find out what is the hot topic, accepted type of articles, and in this particular area, how my topic is basically suitable for that. And ask yourself the following questions. Is the journal is peer reviewed? That means, is the journal is a peer review, blind review format? That means, if I submit my particular journal article, then is the journal sending to the peers, means people who are working in the similar kind of fields are working, whether it is being peer reviewed. That's basically, because if it is not peer reviewed, that means journal does not have a very high standing in the market. Who is the journal's audience? That means what kind of people? Then thinking about a particular audience like emerging market journals. So the emerging market economist or emerging market science is basically looking at the particular journals. That's basically helpful for them. Who is the journal's audience? What is the average time to print? That means how long, if I submit today, some journals take about 2 years, 2.5 years. Some journal takes about 1.5 years. Some journal takes about 3 months to publish. Okay, so if I think that my finding is so important, if it is published after 2-3 years or 4 years, then it does not really carry any meaning. So that means it becomes stale. So I should basically publish in a journal which is basically more up to date, which can publish my journal within 6 months time or something like that. Okay. Then what is the journal's impact factor? If a journal's impact factor is high, chance of my publication getting to the audience is very high. So I will go to a journal where the impact factor is high. Decide on one journal, do not submit to multiple journals. So you are not supposed to submit to the multiple journals. Okay. So what about what the words that you will use? This is not a creative writing class, right? So research is not a creative writing. Journal space is precious, so you have to be concise. If clarity can be achieved in n words, please don't use n+1 words. And more difficult than we can imagine, because this is, sometimes articles become verbose. Sometimes, we try to overemphasize, over explain, basically articles. So it becomes a kind of a problem. We take more space, we take more time. Okay. So we try to basically avoid that. Then the process that I follow, or process most of the researchers basically follow, writing in the, basically in the backwards, right? Backwards. First, we put the, figures and tables. Afterwards, we'll come to the citations and other things, right? Figures and tables. First, we put all the figures and tables, right? Then after that, we put the, the methods, results, discussions, all those things that, then conclusions and introduction. Conclusions, introduction is in the first introduction, conclusion is the last. After discussion, results and discussion, because methodology data will be, after you put this particular methodology data, then you result that I said, the first thing that we, journal, first thing is an abstract. Abstract will be the end. Abstract will be able to tell you everything that we can think about, right? So, then after the abstract, the journal starts, so it starts with the introduction or the motivation. Second, then the objective, right? Third is the data. Third is the literature. Fourth is the data. Fifth is the method. Sixth is the results and discussion. Seventh is the conclusion, right? So, abstract and title, each question each section has a definite purpose. So, please restrict what is this particular purpose. If it is introduction, just briefly introduce the topic and its relevance. Don't introduce the objective here. It's just basically talking about a particular subject. Developing your title, this is your opportunity to attract the reader's attention. How do I basically give a particular title, right? The impact of COVID, if I want to see the, basically how do I give a particular title, this particular one, impact of, the stock market's impact on, or how the stock market volatility increased during COVID, this one. So, or what is the correlation between the relationship between the, 5 different emerging markets, how each emerging market is behaving differently. So we need to basically choose a particular, a title for that, so that it attracts the larger part of the audience. Remember, readers are potential authors who will cite your article, because they will remember this and they will cite, because they will go, because some researchers are reading your articles, they are likely to cite your article. Keep it informative and concise, right? Because articles have to be written very, informative way, and it should be concise, precisely. It should be precise. Reviewers will check whether the title is specific, whether it reflects the content of the manuscript. Many times, the reviewers reject the paper because what you have given the title and the body of the, when they read, the body does not really match. So they go for review, they basically reject, or they send it back for changing this particular one, but either they changing the title so that it basically tells the story that is inside your article. Then editors hate titles that make no sense or fail to represent the subject matter adequately. Editors hate, the titles that you are basically giving, it does not make any sense. It does not tell a story. Okay. And it helps to represent the subject matter adequately. So you cannot basically, give an article. There's a lot of thinking has to go to, a lot of people use an explorative analysis. Okay. What exactly, it is such a huge word. What explorative analysis? Because it can be everything. Okay. Such type of this one should be avoided. It should be more specific to the particular topic. Avoid technical jargons and abbreviations, right? Because unless and until you explain abbreviations, like say GST. Okay, every time I will not write goods and service tax, I will write GST, because GST has become very common now, right? But then I will define that GST at the beginning. When abbreviations are there, I must define that GST, it should appear there, right? So you have to write you wish to have a readership as large as possible, right? That's the basic thing that we require. So if you introduce the technical jargons which are not understood, or basically there are very few people who understand this particular jargons, they will not be able to, they will, other people will not like this particular one. So we need to basically, will avoid the technical jargons and abbreviations. And discussion with co-authors, because finally, when you basically putting all the final title on the your journal article, you discuss with the co-authors. Everybody should basically agree with this particular one. Then last one is the abstract. Okay, abstract. Remember, it should be standalone. That means most say if I read 100 articles, when I want to explore 100 articles, typically after reading abstracts, I only pick up out of 100. My chance of picking up articles is only 5 to 6. Okay, because abstracts gives me the full information about the article, whether it's of my interest or not. Right? So abstract should be standalone. It should be concise. It should not be more than 300 to basically. Typically, my abstracts are basically around 300 words. It should not be large, right? And typical 300, 400 words, because every journal will tell you the abstract should be only this much of total. Maximum is this, minimum is this particular words, right? So standalone, it should be standalone because it should explain everything what I have written in this journal. Consider if the advertisement for your article, because people will read. If it is good, people will basically read your full journal. Should tell the prospective reader what you did and highlight the key findings. That means your abstract should tell you what you have done. In abstract should not talk about the existing literature. Abstract should not talk about the challenges of methodology. Abstract talk about what you did, right? What you basically did, and what is your key findings? What you found? These two things were very, very important for your abstract. And abstract should avoid jargons and uncommon abbreviations, which people do not, basically understand and people do not, like. You must be accurate and specific in abstract, because use words which reflect the precise meaning, right? People should not double mean a particular word. So that means you have to be clearly understanding each and every word that you are using in this, right? A clear abstract will strongly influence whether or not your work is further considered. That means a clear abstract will strongly influence, right? Because my abstract, as I said, abstract people will read. I typically read the abstract first. If you see many times, some of the data that we receive, my abstract has been, read by 900 people, but my download is only about 80 or 70. So that means more than, if 900 people have read my abstract, only 80 people found that it is relevant to their work and then downloaded and they read that particular article, right? Because finally, there are many journals, articles, which if a researcher have to basically, I have to pay, to get that particular article. So people would not like to pay that particular one unless the article is freely available and for free distribution, or it is available with universities under certain, basically group logins. It is basically each and every article is paid to be paid for. So people don't want to pay. So because if it is relevant, if it is they want to do it, because the research money is very precious, small amount of money they receive, and if they spend recklessly, they will basically run out of money. A clear abstract will strongly influence your whether or not your work is further considered for, if further considered means the reader will first, the writer, not only the readers will read, but the reviewer and the editor will first read your abstract. If it is interesting, then they will consider, go further. Otherwise, they will at the abstract stage, they will basically send it back to you. Follow the word limitations. Maximum is 50 to 300 words. Under no circumstances, abstract will be more than 300 words. Okay. So these are basically the things that we basically look at. your chance to convince readers the importance of your work. Describe the problem, other existing solutions, what are their main limitations, and what do you basically hope to achieve. Provide a perspective consistent with the nature of that particular journal. If I am producing, if I am basically writing for an emerging market journal, then I need to basically look at, because emerging markets journals cover different kind of basically articles compared to developed economies, right? So emerging market, basically, when I talk about, if I am doing a study about India, or I'm doing a study about Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore, possibly it will go to an emerging market journal, because things are different in emerging markets. The challenges are different in emerging markets compared to the developed markets. Okay, so introduce the main scientific publications on which your work is based. Cite a couple of original and important work, including recent review articles. Editors hate references irrelevant to their work, okay, and inappropriate judgments on your work and achievements, right? So editors hate reference to irrelevant. That means you should not refer to irrelevant work, because your work in a particular domain, you should not refer to something which is not relevant here. They will think that you have no sense of purpose at all. Pitfalls of too wordy: never use more words than necessary. Do not turn this section into history. Okay, readers lose interest. A mixed bag of introduction with result, discussion, and conclusion thrown in for good measures. That means in introduction, little bit of mixed bag that you can basically look at. Has the the used car salesman feel or oversell? Kind of excessive use of expressions such as novel, fast thing, fast ever, paradigm changing. All these things are these words you have to use. Many times I see that people will write dynamically paradigm, shift. These particular things it does not make any sense for me. Okay, so that's for not only for me, but there are many reviewers which basically looks at it. Look, so the method section details. Method is you have to very clearly tell what exactly you are doing, right? A knowledgeable reader should be able to produce the experiments, right? If you say somebody will go take your model, took the data and see whether it is working or not. Use references and supplementary material for previously published procedures. Do not repeat. Reviewers will criticize incomplete or incorrect descriptions, right? So this is what the reviewers typically would do, and may even recommend rejections. Kind of, just on the result, how do I basically look at results? How do I publish? Effect of a surface structure, some kind of this one, just giving an example. It's not like what you are doing. So table 1, chart, all these things has to be basically in some kind of chart or things. It's effect of a surface structure. So it basically describes what you are doing. Results, only representative results essential for discussion should be presented. Not entire each and every result that you run when you are running basically in computer programs, everything. So data of secondary importance in supplementary material, that means annexes. Do not hide data in the hope of saving it for a later paper. Every data has to be basically, I don't think about that I will use in another particular paper. You may lose evidence to support your conclusions. Use subheadings to keep your results of the same type together. So there are in papers, when you are writing a particular basically data analysis, suppose I can create a subheading for 3 descriptive periods. I will basically put 3 for the entire data is this, but then sub particular, I'll give an example of there's a particular gold markets. Okay, during a particular time when the tax was introduced in gold, things actually are different. The gold prices that World Gold Council gives for India went outside what the actual market price in India or Ahmedabad. Quoted price in gold price quoted in Ahmedabad is the basic price which is acceptable in the market. So you can see that basically how after we started putting the tax on this particular one gold, then how the price relations underwent dramatic changes. So tell a clear and easy to understand story. That's basically results are very important. Discussions, it is the most important section of your article. So you have to say chance to sell your data, right? Many manuscripts are rejected because discussion is very weak. What you found, how do you discuss? Because discussions are important for the policymakers. discussion corresponding to the results. Results has to be discussed. So do not reiterate it, because results you have found, what is the implication of that particular result is very important. You need to complete the published results with yours. So do not ignore work in disagreement with your results. Suppose you found something contrary. So you want to hide that. That should not be the case. Scientific language, tenses, people use, I have seen a lot of, basically grammatical tense mistakes. Average life of a honeybee is 6 weeks. Past tense for experiments that you have conducted, past tense when you describe the results of an experiment, right? So there's a basically, and then your conclusions are very, very clear, right? So in summary, we have, demonstrated all these kind of things that has to be, conclusions have to be very, very clearly, it should not be verbose, it has to be basically given, right? Tells how your work advances the field of conclusion, means what kind of contribution I have made to this particular journal. Without clear conclusions, reviewers and readers will simply throw out your work, whether it's merits publication or journal. Do not repeat the abstract or list out experimental results. Conclude. Provides a clear scientific justification for work, indicate possible applications and extensions. Because that's what I said. What are the limitations and what future research can be done? Acknowledge every person's benefit that you have taken has to acknowledge. You have to recognize those who help you in this particular research, include individuals who have assisted you in this. Every time in the past visit that, the paper thanks the Dr. So-and-so for his, critical comment on the first draft of this particular paper. I have presented this particular paper in this conference. These are the people who have basically commented this. Okay. So include individuals who assisted you in your study, advisors, financial supporters, proofreaders, typists, supplier who may have given materials. References. This is the citation of what exactly you know. More mistakes are found in references than any other part of the manuscript. It is one of the most annoying problems, causes great headaches for the editors. Cite the main scientific publication on which your work is published. Do not inflate the manuscript with too many references. It does not make it better manuscript. Only thing is, which manuscript you are using in the particular data, it should be linked, not all the references. Avoid excessive self-citation. Own my own work, avoid basically citations. Excessive citations of publications from the same region. If I only publish emerging market, I should only consider Thailand, Singapore, this one. That is also, I need to basically look at cross-section of studies, not only in this particular region, I need to look at the developed markets, European regions. Okay, so this is what about the things about I wanted to talk to you, and I have another. Okay, so I have another small presentation which I will share with on your. Okay, so this is a very important, okay, so this is a very important journal of accounting research, right? And it was recently published. So, right? Audit partners' role in material misstatement, resolution, survey, and interview evidence. These 4 people are very, very well known in that particular field, published in 18th August 2023, and this will be available in this particular link. Okay, and this is one of the most respected journal of accounting research. Okay, so let me just see how they put it. Right. So this is the abstract. You can see how they have basically put that particular one. Simple, very small. Auditors are expected to identify and resolve material misstatements, okay, which is basically any auditor will know, right? In management financial statements, however, beyond the audit opinion, the audit process is opaque. To address this, we independently survey 462 audit partners and interview 24 audit partners, CFOs, audit committee members on how partners address risk, resolve and consequences of MMs. Partners identify MMs in approximately 9% of public companies and 15% in private engagements and use qualitative factors to waive apparent MMs. Loan covenants and going concern issues increase risk more than earning benchmark issues. Partners point to a variety of both auditors and client factors as threats to audit effectiveness. Partners often rely on rapport with management, involve the national office and audit committee in resolving MMs. Partners' incentive around restatements are context-specific. Our results provide new insight into auditors' role in financial reporting that are relevant to academics, practitioners, and regulators. You see how precisely they have written in their abstract. What exactly they want to. So they have sold the entire of their research, which is basically about 72 pages, because it has full audit, full survey data, right? It has put in such a beautiful way. They have put this particular journal article. Then how they are presented. Introduction. Audits have, credence good properties. They have cited two people who have, basically in 2012, they have proved this, and academics, investors, regulators ordinarily learn little about auditors' work except in rare instances of litigation or regulatory enforcement. Auditors address this gap by independently surveying 462 audit engagement partners. Henceforth, we call them as partners, about their role in financial reporting process, public and private companies, by conducting 24 semi-structured interviews. That means there are questionnaires with partners, CFOs, audit committee members. Topic 1 examines the factors affecting the perceived. See how they have broken down into 3 different parts. Topic 1 examines the factors affecting the perceived probability that a client will have an on the auditor's ability to address risk. Second is studies the auditor's role in resolving MMs. Topic 3 examines the partner and audit relationship consequences of identifying, resolving MMs. So they are broken down into 3 different parts. Then motivation, assessing and addressing risk, resolution of MMs and consequences. They have basically presented into 3 different parts. Then survey methodology, how they have basically conducted survey instruments. When deploying the survey, we randomize the order of question within each topic and options within each question. Our instruments also included 15 short questions on respondents' audit background, demographic, administrative matters. These questions allowed us to conduct cross-sectional studies focused on our table 6 and analysis of the client and auditor-driven threats to audit effectiveness. What is the participant pool? We found that 71% of our respondents obtained most of their experience in Big Four firms. They talk about large firms, Big Four are the major contributors, whereas the Big Four employees 61% of the partners in the top 50 firms we include in our email contact list. Thus, our sample is broadly represented. Why they're talking about? They're trying to tell you demographically, we have collected the information. We have important wise, we have collected the information. Sample wise, we have done everything correct, right? So, and they have basically told about demography, right to the public clients, private clients, all those things, the public companies, private companies, all these things, they have been very, very clear. Nevertheless, 59% respondents indicate they have identified at least one such that the client had to restate previously filed financial statements, notify investors that the previously filed in financial statements could not be relied upon. That means they have forced people to do it. Then demographies, risk environment, how they have basically broken down the results into 5 different parts. Okay, demographic means what are the people they have tested, what are the people, what kind of answer they have received. Okay, and then risk environment, public company and private company. So public company is going to have higher inherent risk because they got public shareholders. So sometimes management gets tempted, and so it's not so much found out, but exercising judgment till towards more favorable treatment in terms of how financials are going to appear. Okay, than a, basically in terms of private client. Assessing and addressing the risk. So over half of partners say that they increase their risk assessment every time when the client is close to breaching a loan covenant, when the basically or faces doubts about the ability to continue as a going concern. 63%. One partner we interviewed provided additional content. One of my clients last year had a very close call on goodwill impairment. We pushed back pretty hard and we said, you have to change your methodology. Part of the reason why they didn't want to do that is because they felt rather, loan covenants, they had to go renegotiate or they go negotiate back with the bank, do an amendment to that debt agreement. It was fun for the CFO to have the conversation with the CEO. Okay, resolution FM and consequence, how they have basically presented the results. Then conclusions, partners reporting, identifying, what is the most important conclusions, what they found out about the particular survey, they have been able to basically put it there here. Partners view risk to increase more of a loan component going concern issues than for earning a benchmark issues. In terms of circumstances that most often threaten audit effectiveness, they point to the lack of integrity and expertise on the client's team, ineffective internal controls. We talk always about internal controls, so that the company is having. So they have found out that you have ineffective, in major cases, they have ineffective internal controls. Time pressure from both clients and audit firms. Partners differ considerably in how they approach resolution, indicating a partner-specific style. That means is partner-wise, demography-wise, they can have different opinions on this. Most common resolution tactics included leaning on rapport with management involving national office and audit committee. Okay, so PCAOB, that is basically the American audit committee, sorry. Okay. So with these particular ones, now we are basically, I just wanted to show how they basically put their, research contribution for the betterment of, basically society. Okay. So I will stop sharing, right? And now, I think I have finished my presentation. We have still about 8-9 minutes are there. We can basically talk about question answers if you have any.
So I would request the audience, if they are having any questions, so they can put in the chat box and sir is there for replying.
I hope that the presentation was, basically useful. The topic that we discussed was, what exactly we wanted to do. The audience.
Yes, sir. The session was useful. Even we would like our participants to reply for this question. How did they felt for the today's webinar? And if they are having any feedback, so they can even share that as well. That would be an additional for all of us to go ahead with more polished and better sessions. So if anybody is having any questions or any feedback, they can share in the chat box. So, sir, we have received the question. One question is, report writing is art or a science?
Report writing is both art and science, because you need a good storyteller, which is basically an art. Science is basically a storyteller cannot just make the story out of the air. He has to basically base the, right, when you think about a computer programmer, And there is a guy who is a domain expert who tells the story, and the computer programmer writes the program, which is basically gives me the results. The same way, it is a combination of art and science. So if your science is not very strong, your art will not be really useful. Storytelling will not be sufficient. You will be only telling a story out of the air rather than on the solid, research data.
So it is explained beautifully. Now the next question is, what are the minimum and maximum number of words for a social science research paper abstract?
Abstract is under no circumstances for any social science magazine or any kind of this one. It is not a social science magazine. I've seen even the top medical journals. Sometimes I read some medical journals. There also the abstract is around 250 words. So 250 words, try to restrict that around 250 words. That should be sufficient. Because there only you are talking about two things. Okay, what you found, right? And what do you wanted to do? There's only two things you have to. So abstract should be just follow the Journal of Accounting Research, how clearly they have written that abstract.
Okay, sir. So next question is, if we are going by survey or questionnaires, could you please guide how do we go about it and get better results?
Okay. See, there are basically very important, information is available on survey methods. First of all, survey. If I want to, suppose you want to find out, just an example that, you want to find out how people were affected during, I made my students do a survey in the local community, how they were affected by this, by COVID in terms of financial, whether that is very banking penetration, because we went into online payment and all these things, how many people have bank accounts and all. So they think about this. That means if I'm doing this, my survey method should basically have an age group of people who are, who are taking responsible decisions, like, managing money. So around age of 25 to and above people should be included in the study. Then whether we have, basically if my sample size will not be unbiased, that means it must basically have male and female. That means what percentage of male in this particular region. What is the male-female ratio? I simply go by the male, basically male population versus female population ratio. In that, I basically go. Then third is, among this particular one, what should be the people who are basically uneducated and educated group? Even if the education, what level of education? So it should be representative of the, basically it is kind of a balancing act, right? You have to try your best to give representation to each and every size in terms of demography, in terms of age, in terms of qualification, in terms of sex, everything you have to consider in together so that your sample size is not biased. That you have to think about that. So if a sample size, there are various theories are also there. There are various ways you have written how do I basically create a sample size which is acceptable to the journals. There are basically very lot of good articles are there. The article that I have referred, if you look at that particular article, it has produced a beautiful, fantastic sample size. Okay, you can look at that particular one, see how the sample size are determined by people. Okay.
So next question we have received is, what if we prepare a report about some topic, but some points are not correct in that report, and you became aware of that after publishing it? It is received from Pavan Hegde ji.
Yeah, Pavan Hegde ji. See, there is always, if it is published, first of all, that means if it is published, it was not known to the reviewer, it was not known to the editor, it was not known to you. If something new fact has come to our mind today, we have to again reclassify that particular data. We have to rewrite this. So there can be a supplementary article to which will basically look into this particular one. Because why it was published? Because it was not known to people. Or it was known and knowingly we have published that which is not correct. Okay, ethically it's not correct. Knowingly we have published, that means we have published something which we are not aware. And even the editors were not aware, even the reviewers are not aware, even the people who were involved in this entire process were not aware. So it was a genuine thing which we have to basically supplement, come out with a supplement article and write about that. This is how we do it.
So Sir, one more question is being received, that is, from where the data for forensic audit research paper can be found?
Come again? I didn't understand that. I didn't hear you
Question
properly.
is, from where the data for forensic audit research paper can be found?
Okay. Ahmedabad, they have a forensic research institute today. That institute is doing very good, and they have a lot of research work they're doing in Ahmedabad. Okay. So they have a lot of papers are there, a lot of course work, a lot of course papers are there which you can do. And today, forensic audit is become so important today that good amount of work has been done. Okay, you will get in basically in internet. The Journal of Accounting Research also publishes a lot of information about the global forensic audit issues. Okay, so today forensic audit has become so important today that it has become very common. At least you can look at the working papers of Ahmedabad, that Forensic Institute. You will get some good amount of, at least I have seen some of the very good articles there.
Sir, we have taken up the questions. So now I would like to place a big thanks to you for your presence and for the knowledge you have shared with all of us. And it was really a very wonderful session. I hope the audience would have enjoyed and they would have learned a lot from your side. Now, on behalf of the research committee, I would like to extend my warm gratitude to the esteemed chairman and vice chairman of the committee, CA Dr. Anuj Goyal sir and CA Kotha Srinivas sir. So today as we all know that today is the last session we are having in this webinar series of the research methodology. So today we are coming to an end, and I would like to place my deep gratitude towards all the speakers who have been throughout this journey, and it was wonderful. The objective of organizing this series was to make the researchers understand what is the right research methodology, and I hope we were able to deliver the same. And faculties, through their interactive approach, through their question answer way of asking, and through their practical examples, have tried to put it in front of you and try to make you understand the things at ease, and try to engage the audience. So it was again a very interesting thing for the audience. We have started this journey way back in the 18th September, on the 18th September. And so there we have covered all the relevant topics, starting from the hypothesis, research framework, and all in series. And today, the final topic of research publication and report writing we have finished. So it would be like wrong if I wouldn't place the big thanks to our secretary of the committee, that is Dr. Amit Kumar Agarwal sir, who have particularly thought about this, and who has planned for this wonderful series under the able chairmanship of our CA Dr. Anuj Goyal sir, the research committee's chairman. And the audience should also be placed a big thanks for that. Their participation, for they have been continuously, they were present, and throughout these sessions there was a huge participation. Being the research area which is not so familiar for the chartered accountant, then also they have tried their level best, and being present and even engaged with the faculties and asked the question. So a big round of applause for our audience as well, that they have been there and allowed us to continue this journey. So thank you to all again for this wonderful session and series that we had. And the journey of learning keeps on going. So I wish all of you happy learning. And thank you once again, sir, for your time that you have taken and the efforts that you have put for us. So thank you once again from the research committee side. Thank you to one and all.
Thank you so much. So we'll leave. Thank you. All the best. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.